I'm Derek Eyring. I've been in the real estate business for over 3 decades. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm always paying attention to real estate trends, industry innovators, and business influencers.
I'm Alan Smith. For over 25 years, I've helped buyers and sellers with their real estate needs. Join us on this podcast. Let's talk about strategies to help you play this real estate game to win.
Join us as we search out the latest trends, hot topics, red flags, and deal breakers in every episode of Market Movers. Hey, what's going on?
Well, it's time for another podcast.
I guess so.
We've got some things to say.
We got some words for you. Hey, we're actually, I always have to remind myself, we're in a real estate office.
Yes, real live, everyday real estate
Right.
office.
So, the fridge kicks on, the radio is going,
Yeah.
people are going to come and go. It's meeting morning.
Yep.
So, if you hear a bunch of noise and a couple car crashes outside, that's just because
We should count how many times the voice says back door open.
back
And then we'll take a shot for every time we do that.
So we have 4 great topics this week that these things kind of bubble up over the previous month of meetings and things that are going on in the marketplace. So it's not out of nowhere that we pick these topics.
Right. And a lot of what you and I do daily is helping brokers navigate the terrain of transactions. So things want to derail and they get out of whack. It's kind of bringing everybody back from the ledge and saying, okay, let's work through this process.
Right, because if we work our brokers through, then we work our buyers and sellers through, and that's a good segue, Alan.
Right.
The first topic is how do brokers keep deals together. I think that folks don't really see all that stuff going on in the background, and so it's good for us to talk about a few of those scenarios.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember once you start working with clients, whether they're buying or selling, it doesn't matter what side of the table you're on, it's an emotional roller coaster. And there are things going on with your clients that we don't even think about. There are things that are keeping them up at night. They're worrying about the move, and they're worried about transferring Junior to a new school, and are they going to like living in Montana, and all these different things are going on in their lives, and we don't oftentimes think about that. So managing emotions in the transaction is huge. I always tell people it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but my job is to make sure it's a fun roller coaster ride, not a terrifying one. And that speaks also to emotions with the other brokers.
Yeah, you really nailed it there, because that's where my mind goes first. Is a lot of times the reason why emotions run high is because the broker is reporting back to their client things that are happening behind the scenes that could be worked out or smoothed out or sorted out before they even land in your client's lap.
Right.
And it's generally like this: Sally, the other broker, Sally is being so unreasonable here with these requests for these work order items. It's sort of placing blame on the other broker.
Right.
So saying, here's what the buyers asked for.
Yep.
Just presenting the facts, presenting that, here's what's normal in a transaction. We generally see X, Y, and Z in inspection requests, and here's how we should deal with it. Right. Instead, we just kind of elevate our emotions.
Or we blame the other broker for, I cannot believe they're even asking for this. This is so dumb.
Yeah, and we've all done that. And I think part of, the metamorphosis of our careers is learning how to fix that personally. Because I remember when I started out, it's only natural, right? Boy, this is getting hard because, John said this and they said that, and your clients don't need to hear that.
Well, and a lot of times I always think behind the scenes, whenever buyers and sellers are at each other's, they're butting heads over something and it's getting emotional, 9 out of 10 times the brokers cause that. Yeah. By their interactions and then transferring that negative energy onto their client. And so takeaway, if you're a real estate broker watching this, is don't do that. Be a filter there. That's the reason we're here, is to be a filter in the negotiation phases. And there's a lot of things. If you're not getting along with the other broker, your clients don't need to be affected by that. They need to be affected by the nuts and bolts and terms and conditions of the transaction.
Yeah. So brokers, keep it business-like.
Keep it business-like. And I think the other thing that can spark emotions is Make sure your clients understand what the next step is in the transaction. Now, they don't need to know the next 27 steps, but the next step or two helps alleviate surprises. So for like home inspections, when a buyer is entitled to do a home inspection, what does the response to that home inspection look like? Do your sellers know it takes 2 to 3 hours and they shouldn't be home for that? And do they know what the process is, what the buyer's possible responses are, what their replies are to the buyer's requests, if any? So letting them know what next steps are helps, I think, eliminate surprises so that they're not like, oh, well, I didn't know they could ask for a new roof.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Exactly. The inspection is the first big spot in the transaction where there could be a hang up on both sides.
Yeah.
And managing those expectations is really important.
Yeah. And then kind of navigating them through, what does the financing process look like? We have that lull where the inspection's resolved and all this stuff is okay. We know what we're going to do on the inspection. And now we're just waiting for the appraisal.
Yeah.
I call it the hurry up and wait part of the program,
Right.
We're just sitting around doing nothing, waiting for the appraisal.
So for people that don't know, it used to be you could kind of gauge when the appraiser was going to come because the lender had a direct line to the appraiser. But then that all changed back in 2011 or whenever the Dodd-Frank Act passed.
Back in the good old days.
So now the appraisal process is sort of in a third-party lockbox. And so the lender orders the appraisal. They don't know who's going to get it. And then the appraiser sort of, sets up their own thing at that point.
Yeah. You usually know what the due date is when the appraisal's due back to the lender, but that brings us into, the financing aspects of it. Stay in touch with the lender. If you represent the buyer, stay in touch with the lender throughout the transaction. Don't ghost them, because once the inspection issues are resolved and the appraisal's been ordered, the financing, the lender is handling everything behind the scenes. And that's where sometimes transactions can derail.
Yeah. And I tell you what, a good broker, an experienced broker, and if you're not experienced, there's no slight on that. But we have our spidey senses. We know when something's not right with a lender. We're not getting the kind of responses that we should be getting based on normal expectations. I just had that going on in a transaction. I kind of knew right away that something was awry, and it's sure enough, right? Yeah. So, the more experience we get, the more our spidey senses tingle.
And on the listing side, if you represent the seller, there's nothing that says you can't call the lender from time to time to see how things are. Are we on track? Have you sent out the CD yet? Has the appraisal been ordered? When is the appraisal due? Staying on top of that so that you can speak intelligently to your sellers about how the transaction is moving forward. And again, keep everybody in the loop. They know what the next steps are, less emotions.
Yeah, I like to do that. It keeps everybody on their toes. I'm not there to be an interloper and bug people, but I also am doing my job for my clients.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too is over time, we've developed a series of checklists and systems for how we navigate things before we take a listing live, then once we're live, and then once we're under contract. And whether you're on the buying side or listing side, we have a lot of checklists that we use and systems in place.
And the reason for the checklist is to keep communication flowing, right?
And to anticipate upcoming steps so we don't forget about something. If you're going to list a property tomorrow, oh gosh, I forgot to order the signpost. That's a bad thing. So.
Yeah. And then the next kind of piece of the puzzle is there are all sorts of contingencies in a transaction. There's an inspection contingency, financing, could be a contingency for a house sale, lots of things to keep track of. And you'd be surprised how many brokers don't pay attention to their timelines.
Well, the timelines are important. You could have title issues. You could have all kinds of things. There's a lot of moving plates. If you think of the old Ed Sullivan show where the guy was spinning all the plates and he'd go down the row and then the first plate would start wobbling. He had to run back and get that spinning again. That's kind of real estate in a nutshell. So you need to keep track of all these little things. Have a system in place. Write it down. Don't assume you're going to remember anything. And then the old advice I give everybody is inspect what you expect. Don't assume something is happening behind the scenes. For example, with the lending, don't assume any of that. Ask the questions and represent your client to the best of your ability.
Yeah, and sort of the final thought on this, and we're going to move on to the next topic because
we could talk about this all day.
We could go all day. It's just have some, we have to have confidence. So we have to know what we're doing to have confidence, right? And that takes practice.
Right.
And so if we're confident and we can relate to our clients confidently, even when things are tough, we can keep everybody kind of firm in the transaction, and everyone knows we're going to get through this, right?
Right.
So if there's relationships to leverage to get things done, that's where we come in, right? Our contractors, our vendors, other agents that we have good relationships with. That's how we keep the transaction tied together
Exactly.
when it gets bumpy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And our clients are, nervous enough as it is, buying and selling, right?
Yeah, I mean, if this were easy, they wouldn't need us.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason that people hire us is to help them solve something in their life. We want to get to the next chapter of our life. And can you help me do this? And can you make this as pain-free as possible? And that's what we're here to do. So we're here to remind them there is light at the end of the tunnel if some hiccup comes along. So we need to be positive in our approach and our outlook to the transaction. We need to be realistic. We
Yeah.
need to keep people in the loop, and we just need to handle everything.
Right. One of my favorite things to tell a client, and I genuinely always believe this, is we're going to get this done. We're going to get to the end of this and get the result you want. It's just not always going to be easy, right? So we have to, prepare expectations, maintain our professionalism, take responsibility when we have to.
Right.
There are times when things just don't go our way, and we need to talk about it. Just get out in front of it and deal with it, right?
And a lot of what we're being paid for is our honesty.
Yeah.
And our experience matters, but our honesty. You need to level with your clients and let them know what the terrain really looks like.
Right. So the next topic, how can a real estate broker possibly save anybody money with all that everyone has to pay in a transaction? How do we save people money?
Well, one of the ways that we save money is by we're kind of the filter between the buyer and the seller, and that tends to make negotiations smoother.
Generally, yes.
If
Unless
imagine
your filter's really messed up.
unless your filter's
You
clogged.
go to the loop place and they're like, you need to change
You need a
this."
new filter.
Yeah.
But if imagine a buyer and seller negotiating a transaction individually with each other, it's so easy to say something that offends the other party.
Generally does not go well. One of our number one rules is don't let buyers and sellers talk. That's not because we're trying to keep people away from each other.
Right.
Because we don't, because in our experience, it never goes well, you know, right?
Yeah, when the buyer says the first thing they're going to do is tear out those roses and put in a sport court, and the seller overhears that, guess what?
And grandma gave you the rose bush 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people get emotional about something, and that's where we come in, where we can keep that at a distance.
Yeah.
We can help people negotiate and do the best job we can, and keeping things on track. Let's get the emotions out of it. This is, once you know that everything else is acceptable, it's really a math equation for the seller. Are we going to net what we need to net, and what does everything look like? And I've had some people that say, "Oh, I can't believe they're asking for closing costs." Well, that triggers a seller, right? Well, maybe they're not supposed to be doing that. And all of a sudden we go down that tangent when reality is, okay, here's what they're offering. Here's their closing costs. This nets you this. Does this work?
Right.
Or do we want to adjust it? Do we want to counter them in some way?
Yeah. And let's talk about something real topical right now. So it's June 2025. The market, we're building inventory. There's still good market volume, but it's all about pricing. So saving money by pricing strategy, those two actually come hand in hand. I know that a lot of sellers think, well, a pricing strategy, that sounds like you just want to lower my price. Right. But sometimes the reality is we need to really focus in on that price right now, especially.
Yeah, there is a group of buyers out there right now that are just swirling around looking at properties, and they haven't found what they want. They don't know that your seller's new listing is coming on the market yet, right? So when it hits the market, all of a sudden, all those buyers are attracted to this new listing, right? Well, if you miss the mark on pricing because you're too high, the old school was, well, let's price it at 1.2. We can always come down to 1.15
Yeah.
if we have to.
That's
in
not working
negotiation.
anymore, is it?
That's a bad strategy
Yeah.
because buyers don't know you're willing to come down to that price. By artificially inflating your price, you've limited your buyer pool because fewer people can afford it.
Yeah.
And right now, if you miss that mark, all these buyers that are swirling around, they look elsewhere because guess what? Buyers start on their keyboards. That's how they find your house. And they look square footage, bedrooms, baths, location, view. They say, not for 1.2. And they go away.
And then you have a stale loaf of bread on the shelf.
You have day old bread on the shelf. But here's the worst part. The worst part is that now these buyers have gone away, and now the only buyers you can attract are the ones that come on the market one at a time.
Right.
Which is like watching the old Heinz ketchup commercial where it slowly drips out of the bottle, right?
Right.
That's bad strategy because that expands your market time. It may mess up with your plans for moving if you have to be somewhere else by a certain deadline. But to the day-old bread, nobody raises the price on day-old bread. Once it's
They can try, but it's not.
once it's on the shelf that long,
not
you
going
start
anywhere.
marking it down and marking it down, and ultimately, you could very easily end up losing more money because of the markdowns than what it would have been if you just priced it correctly to begin with.
Yeah. And some of this is having the hard conversation, right? And I know that we're all a little sheepish about telling somebody it's not gonna quite be what you thought it was. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we just have to have those conversations.
And you got to get that elephant out right off the bat and just get it out on the table right now. Don't ignore red flags about stuff like that. Just talk about it right now because you're going to be talking about it later. And then the worst thing ever would be a seller look you in the eye and say, well, why didn't you tell me about this 4 months ago? That would have been helpful.
And I like to tell my sellers, I'm not here to take away anything from you. I'm here to present the facts, what's happening in the marketplace, because I'm a human being and I'm optimistic. I think humans are mostly optimistic people, right?
Right.
And we always want the best, generally speaking. And I want that for my clients, but I also, reality kicks in.
Right.
I want somebody to tell me when I need to have a reality check. And sometimes we have to tell our folks.
Yeah, somewhere in between Tigger and Eeyore. Is where you want to be.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in either far end of the spectrum. Right. But also it's being honest with if we're talking about sellers right now, being honest with sellers about things they might need to improve about their property. Yeah. Is there some project that probably needs to take place before it hits the market? And sometimes people they're just bored with their house and they think, well, we should repaint the whole interior. It may not need that. Yeah. Right. But being honest with them and saying, we might want to empty the litter box like at least once a month can go a long way.
That's your always use that.
Don't tell me how I remember that. There's been some
cats, Al?
No, there's been some bad home showings in my career.
Yeah, well, when there's no litter box and they're still going.
I've never seen a litter box that
generally
large.
Not good, right? It's
no,
just the basement room.
No, not good.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of everything over the years, haven't we, Al?
And then also, some of that stuff, not the litter box, but some of the conditions of the home may affect the appraisal.
Yeah.
And so it's very common for some brokers to not want to talk about the fact that you've got peeling paint on the side of the house that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And here comes an FHA buyer or something, and the appraiser is probably going to call that out. And now we're scrambling to paint the house 1 week before closing.
Right.
So again, be honest with your clients, and knowledge is power. If you take action on it and just walk around and say, hey, we might need to do something about this.
And I realize everything we just said is mostly seller oriented, and it's mostly talking about honing in on the correct price. Mm-hmm. But that will actually benefit the seller and net them more money if you dial in the price, and that is where it's at right now.
Exactly.
Before, when it was a hot seller's market, you could do one of these.
Yeah.
Right. And you might get it, but that's not the case anymore. So we want you to get the best result possible without being on the market and being the day old loaf of bread or even worse, right?
Right, right. We want the first.
It's going to the hog farm
The
for
first
feed.
two, yeah, yes. The first 2 to 3 weeks tells the whole story.
Yeah.
What kind of activity are you getting? And if you're not getting activity, your price is too high.
Yeah.
If you're getting a lot of activity and no offers, your price is too high.
Yeah.
So the old saying is, there's nothing wrong with a house the price can't fix.
Right.
Start off on a good foot. Start off with a price that you can defend, and you may end up getting multiple offers. Because we're still seeing some of those too.
Hey, look, I just had a house go on last weekend. I've never been so busy at an open house that I can recall, and lots of traction and offer right away. You never know, but we really focused on the price up to the last minute.
Right.
And then we tweaked it a few times, tweaked our marketing, tweaked our staging. We really, really, really spent a lot of time on that. So
that's good. So think about when our market right now, when inventory has increased, which it has, and now the buyers have selection, which they didn't have obviously during COVID, but there's selection right now that buyers have. So when buyers go to look at a property, they're also experiencing the trying to eliminate things from their choices, right? So we're going to disqualify properties that we don't want because we have a lot to look at. We have 4 houses to look at today. Let's disqualify this one. And you don't want to be on the disqualified list.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's a big part of market positioning is looking at, so we've got the price dialed in, right? But then the last thing that your broker should do is look at the active inventory, what we're competing against. And we want to be right there in the top choices, right?
Yeah. Well, if somebody's coming into town to look at houses today, they're going to look at yours and they're going to look at the 3 other unsold properties that are on the market.
Right.
How do you stack up to them, and what makes them want your house?
Okay, so this next one might be a little controversial. We're never trying to talk smack about other brokers. We're trying to talk about our industry and how we can get better.
Right.
All right. So with that in mind, how do you spot a real broker from a real risk if you're a buyer or seller?
That's a great question. And when I got in this business, I remember driving to the office in a Conestoga wagon because that's back in the early days.
Your Spurs on?
The big rap about real estate brokers is still the big rap today: lack of communication.
It really is, and it's so easy to fix.
And now we have this thing called cell phones. So why can you not communicate with your client? You've got texting, email, and actually voice conversations in addition to meeting them face to face, right?
Yeah.
The fact that people still complain about a lack of communication is directly on us. That's our fault. And the way I tell people to look at this is, if your client is calling you more often than you are calling them, that's your best indication that your level of communication with this particular client is not meeting their needs.
Yeah.
Some people need more hand-holding than others. Some people don't want to talk to you until you have an offer in hand, but other people need reassurances. And so
you got to be able to read the room, right?
you read the room and adjust your level of communication accordingly. If you know your client's going to call you 3 times a day because they're nervous about something, get out in front of that and call them.
Call them 6 times.
And call them and say, hey, but just so you know, don't worry about this, and this. I already got it handled. This thing will happen tomorrow.
Reminds me of a great broker, rest in peace, Jeff Daniel, who used to talk to us a lot. He would mentor us a little bit about, because he was doing like 250 deals a year.
Right.
And his big thing was, if somebody emails me at 11 o'clock at night, I get on the phone and call them back.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of funny, but that's how he rolled, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So and the next thing is, you got to know the market cold. And I tell new brokers this: you can be better than about 90% of all the brokers out there right now if you just go and look at everything on the market. Not, again, dissing current brokers, but what happens is, as we get busier and busier, we get blinders. Bob and Mary are looking for a Rambler in downtown or in North Tacoma for $550,000, and that's all I'm looking for.
Right.
And then I'm missing out on what else is going on in the marketplace.
Right.
A new broker can cover all of that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they don't have 5 clients that they're working with.
Yeah. So one of the things I always tell people is, when you get up, whatever your morning routine is and stuff, and you have that first cup of coffee, and you're going to fire up your laptop, sit down and just see what happened last night in the marketplace. Go to the MLS and look at the stats and see what the new listings are that came on yesterday. Can you go see those new listings?
Right.
So you know what the market is doing right now. Now you can talk about it. So you may get lucky. Somebody walks in and says, "Hey, what's going on with that little yellow house down the street?" You can say, "Oh, well, it's got this, this, and this because you were in it yesterday."
Yeah, when you see one, and the first thing that when you go and talk to the car guy, and he can rattle off, this is a V8, it's got a high rating, it's a great car. Here's why. That's the guy knows cars, right?
Right.
So
You want people that are knowledgeable. And also, if you're a seller, one of the values of hiring somebody that's local, that really knows the local market, is they're going to talk up your listing to their cohorts in the office.
Yeah.
And usually, like in our offices, we're one of the most productive offices in our area, right? And all of our offices. And so you want that conversation happening. You don't want somebody who lives, north of the city who never comes into this town marketing your property, because who are they reaching?
That's really important. I think, we all paint with the same brush, so that could be even another John L. Scott broker from way outside the area that you're working with, and you think John L. Scott, but they're from Arlington,
Right.
trying to list your house in Tacoma. So start asking questions, right? I think that's important. Neighborhoods are nuanced,
Right.
And you have to know what's going on locally.
Yeah. So when you get a sign call, is the broker from Arlington, to use that example, not picking on Arlington.
No, we're not. No, we're not. But it's reality, right?
Is the broker from out of the area going to drop everything and come show the house to the sign call?
Yeah.
Or are they going to farm it off to somebody that's in the local office that doesn't know anything about the house?
Right.
So that's something to consider.
So the next thing, again, we're talking, when you see one, how to determine if you're working with somebody good. Are they listening to you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking going on. Are they listening?
Yeah, there's an old Stephen Covey saying from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People: seek first to understand, then be understood. The more important twist to that is, if you're a real estate broker, your clients need to know that you understand them and that they are being understood. And a lot of that is listening and empathizing with what their situation is and trying to help them solve whatever they need to get solved. I don't care what house my buyers buy. I want them to buy the house they want to live in because of the reasons they want to live there. It's not on me to say, well, I wouldn't buy that house. The picket fence needs replacing. Maybe they're fence builders. I don't know. But I want them to be happy. Right. And so I want to help them achieve their dream. And if it's a seller, I want to help them sell their house for the best possible price in the least amount of time, least amount of hassle, so they can get moved to the next chapter.
Absolutely. Let's touch on one more positive thing to look for with a broker, and then we'll talk about things to identify that might be a little risky. So the last one, I think that the most important, besides the ones we've talked about, is skilled negotiation. That's what you're hiring somebody for. That's probably number 2, communication, negotiation, top 2 things you're hiring somebody to do.
Yeah, and the most important aspect of negotiation is you need to keep a calm, cool demeanor.
Yeah.
If you're getting all emotionally wrapped up and aggravated in the negotiation phase, you're talking to the other real estate broker. Right?
Yeah, generally that's who we're negotiating with, right?
Keep things nice and level. Keep things easy. Make them want to do business with you if you're trying to get your offer accepted, for example, right?
And never compromise your clients. If somebody calls and says, does your seller have room on price? No, my seller doesn't have room. We price this thing to go.
Yeah. Or just tell them, sure they do. I know they'll take more.
Yeah.
So
they'll always take more.
They'll always take more.
Yeah.
But who do you represent in the transaction?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't worry about the other person's feelings. That's their broker's responsibility.
Yeah.
If you're handling everything in a nice, polite manner, you don't have to worry about that anyway.
Right.
But you always remind yourself, who do you represent in the transaction? I need to represent my client to the best possible way I can. And this is what they want to do. There's an old saying that we don't make the decisions in the transaction. Our clients make the decisions. We handle the process.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
If
You
I
got it.
make decisions for my client, if I tell you, this is a great house, you should buy this,
Yeah.
and then it ends up not going well for you, you're going to say, well, you told me to buy this house, right?
Right.
If you say to me, I like this house, I want to buy it.
And
Okay, good. Let's go.
figure out how to get it done for
Right,
you, right?
right.
So some warning signs of a maybe not so great risky broker. The first one is okay. Here's the example. Things are never so good as, and I stole this from you. Things are never so good as they are in the honeymoon period, right?
Right.
So during the honeymoon period, if the communication level is already bad when you first start doing business with the broker, and you're just not connecting, as communication seems off, probably a sign. There's your sign.
There's your sign. Yeah. So to the old corporate days, an employee is never going to be better than they are in the job interview.
Yeah.
So if the job interview is going poorly,
Yeah.
it's only going downhill from there, right? So if you have a
Great
situation with a real estate broker and you're already getting poor communication, or you're trying to list your home and they show up 15 minutes late, just
done deal.
randomly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lack of respect,
Right.
right? And so if you're that broker, don't do that anymore, because you're already
Right.
starting off with one hand tied behind your back.
Right.
And just, be respectful of people's time, but it's never going to be better than it is in the initial phases.
Yes.
So
they better be able to
remember
communicate
that.
with you at
Yep.
your level. The next one would be, of course, push your aggressive tactics.
I don't think that works anymore. I mean, people, we have the
Aluminum siding salesman.
from
like
the
Tin
movie
Men.
Tin Men. Yeah.
See Tin Men. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great lesson.
Yeah.
We can tell when people are being pushy or aggressive. Well, you better do this now. This
Yeah.
isn't going to last.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen this won't last long?
One caveat every once in a while, we got to say that because it's not going to last.
If you've looked at 12 houses and you know that this one is the gem,
Yeah.
this is lower than all the other houses, and this one is dialed in, then I tell my buyers all the time, take your time. Take as much time as you want to find the right house you want to live in. But once you decide that that's the house, move now.
Yeah.
Because fate's a funny thing.
Right.
You can have a house sit on the market for 4 months, no offers, right?
That happens all the time.
And you put an offer in today, and we got 2 more offers this morning.
That
right?
happens all the time.
So
it's crazy.
You can't figure out why scientifically this matters and works, but it does.
Yeah.
So take your time. You can make it an easy process. But once you decide, I want to buy that little blue house down on Main Street, go now.
And that's why you hire an agent, because then we can get you there quick.
And we can, So if we know our paperwork and we know the contracts and we know what they say it means, we can get it dialed in and get it to you fast.
We have our inspectors on speed dial.
Yep.
The house I was talking about that had all the activity. The broker that sold it had an inspector on speed dial. They did a pre-inspection. We had other people kind of circling, but my seller was so happy with the pre-inspection, she just went for it. That broker had his ducks in a row.
Right.
So the next one would be so the flip side of knowing the market is doesn't know the market. Real easy to determine that. Just ask a few questions. What are the market stats right now?
Yeah. And if you're a real estate broker listening to this, you should have at least 3 bullet points about your local market. Yeah. We have inventory is up or down. This is what the average sale price is, and this is how many days on market. Or maybe you have another stat that's more important to you, but you should be able to talk intelligently about what's going on in your market every single day, because the market changes every single day.
Yeah.
So, but knowing the market. So when I hear a broker saying, "Oh, my sellers are really upset because their house hasn't sold yet," well, how long have you had the listing? Well, about 4 days. Okay.
Yeah.
Why did they think their house was going to sell in 4 days? Did you overpromise that when you were talking?
4 years ago, it would have sold.
Exactly,
4
but
days.
that's not our market right now as we speak. So you need to be realistic.
Most markets in this area about 45, 60-day market time, depending on the area.
Yes, and depending on pricing strategies and all that kind of stuff. So
if nothing's happened in 2 weeks, that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, because if you're a buyer, you're looking at it saying, well, this house has been on the market for 2 weeks. They're probably getting desperate. No, they're not.
They didn't get good education from their broker.
It's having that level of communication from your broker. And again, going back to us being honest,
Yeah.
with people. Here's the average. We can beat these odds if we do a couple little things with your house, but more than likely it's going to be this long before we attract a buyer based on what the market is telling us now.
Yeah. Okay. We'll touch on one or two more, and we got to get to the last topic.
Yes.
Because we kind of get a little long-winded, Al.
We do. We do.
I think, lack of professionalism is an important thing to identify, because, your broker that you're going to hire is representing you.
Right.
And if they're not professional with you during the interview process, how are they professional with anybody else?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things about professionalism. Do they look like they're prepared? Did they bring materials with them that can help tell the story? Right? Do those look professional?
Right. If you got a stapled couple of pieces of paper with coffee stains on it,
Right.
That's probably not prepared.
And every now and then something in life happens.
Yeah.
You slammed on the brakes and spilled coffee all over your presentation.
Right. Yeah. You have to set aside that we're all
Right.
humans, but in general.
Yeah.
Right?
We all know somebody who shows up 10 minutes late for every meeting.
Yeah.
It's always 10 minutes late.
Oh, I know.
There's no reason
I
for
know
it.
who you're thinking.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
So it's like, okay, if you're showing up that way on your listing presentations, that's not professional.
Yeah.
Are your materials dialed in? Do you know what you're talking about? Does the person have a level of confidence? Do they know the paperwork?
Yeah.
When you learn your paperwork cold so that you can do it in your sleep, that gives you competence.
Yeah.
And when you have a high level of competence, it gives you confidence because you know what you're doing. And I think people can pick up on that. And
They sure can. You know what it looks like? When you're a buyer or seller and you're interviewing a broker, if they have systems in place, they have systems.
yeah,
They actually have a plan.
right.
Then
Yes.
right? If they're winging it,
If they're winging
we
it,
all know when people are winging it, which is most of the time.
right.
We've all done it. But so just, heads up there, right? Okay. And maybe the last thing real quick, if a broker is blaming other folks for things that go wrong, or talking about talking smack, like we just did. No. But, generally speaking, just, nothing's their fault in not taking ownership, then that's an issue.
Yeah, and trying to hide problems that they foresee coming around the corner. Get those things out on the table now and talk about them now, so that any surprise you have in a real estate transaction should be a pleasant one.
Yeah.
And if it's a horrible surprise, then a lot of times you can't foresee those things, but a lot of times you can. And
Right.
you can just say, okay, this doesn't feel right.
Right.
Again, my spidey sense is tingling. It's telling me,
Right.
so.
Okay, so our final topic, I think, is our most
Final one,
final topic. What would Paul Harvey say?
page 4.
Okay, so right now it's June 2025. Alan, why would hiring the right broker matter more now than ever?
Market has been shifting, and there are a lot of people that don't understand that, and a lot of people spend a lot of time watching all the cable TV shows about real estate that were filmed in Mississippi in 2016.
Right.
That's not this market right now, and so you don't paint the inside of a closet and get $10,000 more for your house.
I wish you could.
I wish you could.
Yeah.
But so you need somebody that knows the local market, that knows what the market is doing, that can advise you accordingly, because different markets call for different strategies.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one reason. So they can navigate the market. There's uncertainty right now. You need to have somebody who has a good partnership with a great lender, because right now interest rates are volatile. Right?
Yeah.
Stock market's volatile. So even if you have cash buyers, they're watching their investments that they're going to use to buy this house. And so you need someone who has a calm, cool manner about them, but also has partnerships with good key lenders that can help buyers navigate the loan process easily.
Yeah, and for people that, are dealing with this uncertainty and making decisions, it's important to have all the facts, right? So that's part of our job, is to kind of paint the big picture for people. And so you need to, connect with somebody that knows the big picture, is paying attention, that this isn't a hobby.
Right.
So that's very
I'm not a
important.
dabbler. I do this.
dabbler,
I
yeah.
do this for a living.
for a living on a daily basis, all the time, night and day.
Right. Yes. And
Forever.
and part of that too, we mentioned it earlier, but part of it is if you're a seller, you need to be strategic about your pricing plan.
Very
How are you positioning your home on the market to compete with the other homes that are available, and that it will allow it to appraise at the end of the day.
And sometimes it's just a matter of a few $1,000s that will set your property apart from the next best one.
Right.
So sometimes it's not like big jumps in price that we're talking about.
And if you're thinking of pricing your property, well, we need to go this price because we need to net this much to go to the next
that
chapter.
doesn't work out.
Then what you're looking for is that one buyer out there that cares about how much you net.
Zero. There's no buyers.
I haven't met that buyer yet. So that's kind of a harsh thing to say, but that's
it's
the
true.
reality of the marketplace.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
All right. So marketing is important too. One thing that if you're looking at somebody to list your property and hire a broker, if they don't have a marketing plan, it's probably there's your sign, right?
There's your sign.
Yeah.
You could line up 100 real estate brokers in a row outside your front door. We're all going to come in and we're all going to be within 1% to 2% of each other on the price because we're all looking at the same exact database.
Right.
There's no secret database out there. We're looking at the local MLS data. We're all looking at the same numbers. Now, other than that occasional broker that will paint a pie in the sky scenario because they're desperate to get a listing and they'll tell you, oh, I'd go for 1.5.
Yeah.
Leaving those folks aside for a second, we're all going to be within 1% to 2% of each other. So what you really should be looking at is how are you going to market my home? Are you doing old school stuff like signs in the front yard and open houses? Are you doing new stuff like internet and expanding the listing out to international markets, right?
Right.
All that stuff matters. The old school stuff is still around because it works.
Yeah.
So you got to do everything. If you have a broker that says, I refuse to do this or refuse to do that, well, then you're
I don't do open houses.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah, which whatever, right? So, and the bottom line is the bottom line, right? And that's the most important thing. We're here to protect your bottom line,
right?
Both on the buyer side and the seller side. We want our buyers to, get the best property possible in their budget. We want our sellers to get the most amount of money in a reasonable time period,
right?
Based on their needs, right?
Sure, exactly.
Reasonable is subjective. It could be.
And sometimes, sellers don't want to move quickly. Maybe there's something going on and they need more time. We need to help them accomplish that as well. Obviously, we need to be in tune with our clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, and help them get what they want so that they feel at the end of the day, this was the best possible way I could have ever done this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek, for helping me do this.
That's our goal.
This was great. Yeah.
And it's all in the preparation. It's all in the setup.
And sometimes you have to be flexible. There's real-time adjustments that happen during the closing. And sometimes you just have to be flexible enough to say, okay, this is going on now. We need to do this. And that's where a good, valued real estate broker can guide you and say, okay, in the past, this is typically what happens.
Right.
Well,
so we do this to just help buyers and sellers and brokers sort of make better decisions. Right. Right.
Yeah. And just be aware that you represent your client, do the best possible job for them. If you're a seller or a buyer, you want somebody who takes what they do seriously. I know plenty of full-time brokers have been doing this a long time that are part-time mentally.
Yeah.
Because they're just not engaged.
I mean, I'm part-time mentally on a lot of things.
But not real estate.
Right. I mean, it's okay to be part-time mentally.
Oh, yeah.
But just not maybe at your job.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is, treat it like the profession that it is.
Yeah.
And it'll serve wonders for you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for this month. Next month, we have a very special guest. Lennox Scott is.
Ooh, that'll be great. That'll be great.
So we're excited.
Nobody knows the market better than Lennox.
Nobody knows better than Lennox, for sure.
So we'll see you then.
See you then.